Hey there, knife people. It's Pocket Knife Collector. This is as close as I have in my collection to a Canadian belt knife. This is the folding version of a Canadian belt knife, and it's shaped the same way as a proper Canadian belt knife would be. The original Canadian belt knife was a fixed blade knife, but it had basically this pattern. It was developed in 1957 by a guy named Dean Russell, who owned a cutlery shop. And then he collaborated with Grohmann in Nova Scotia to mass produce his knife design, the Canadian belt knife. And it became very popular with hunters and outdoorsmen in Canada and beyond. And there have been many different iterations of the Canadian belt knife, but all with this same basic shape, right? We've got kind of a curve here and then a complementary curve. It's a drop point with some belly. Okay. This one I picked up for $3 at the Texas State Surplus Store a while ago, which is where knives end up in the state of Texas that are surrendered to TSA at airports. And sometimes you can find interesting things there for not much money. If the staff there recognize that something is valuable, they'll pull it aside and price it appropriately. But sometimes there are things like this that are less common, at least in this part of the world, that they might not realize is kind of special. So I got a good deal on this for $3. It does have somebody's initials on the blade. I suppose those could be polished off, but I'm in no hurry to do that. I was going to insert a photo of a actual fixed blade Canadian belt knife. And of course there are photos all over the internet, but those photos belong to somebody. You know, they're the intellectual property of the photographer who took them, or the manufacturer if they're official product photos, or they're the intellectual property of somebody if they're an actual photograph that exists. That's the way photography works. So I don't like to just steal photos without attribution or permission, and YouTube frowns on that, even though people do it and get away with it. But I am a photographer, sort of amateur hobbyist photographer myself, and my photos have sometimes been taken and used without my permission and without attribution. I don't like that very much, so I don't want to do that to somebody else. So I didn't want to just steal a photo off the internet. So what I did was I asked a couple of different AI chat apps to generate an image of a Canadian belt knife. And if I asked the chat in text, what is a Canadian belt knife, it would know. It would find the information, and it would, sort of accurately describe the history of the Canadian belt knife, and would, tell me interesting things like, oh, the Canadian belt knife has been displayed at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Okay, well, that's cool. But then if I asked it to generate an image of a Canadian belt knife, all the apps did a pretty lousy job. Basically, they just drew a knife, like a Bowie knife or something like that, and put like a maple leaf on it, and wrote Canada on the blade, or wrote Canadian belt knife on the knife. Really, no connection to the actual knife design. So, I mean, AI is relatively new technology, and we're getting goofy results. I'm sure it will improve over time, which is going to have all kinds of fascinating consequences for the whole world, possibly some harmful consequences, but we'll see, right? It's the great unknown. My son offered to draw me a sketch of a Canadian belt knife that I could throw into this video, and if he actually follows through with that, you'll be seeing that now. if you, and I suppose I might throw some of the illustrations that AI generated up here just for amusement, just to entertain you. Yeah, so this is a Grohmann folding knife that is in the familiar pattern of the Canadian belt knife. Why am I showing this to you? Well, I mean, it's interesting, but it's not anything new. I mean, those are still available if you like that, you want to get one. They're available from major retailers, cutlery stores in the U.S. and elsewhere, I'm sure, certainly in Canada. But the reason I wanted to show you this knife is because I saw a new product from Petrified Fish, which is, I think, who this package is from. It doesn't say Petrified Fish. It says on the from line here a bunch of letters and numbers on this shipping package. But I ordered a knife from Petrified Fish directly from their website. I think that's what's in this package. We're going to find out in a second. But it looks to me like it was certainly inspired by, if not, I mean, I'm not trying to say that it was like a ripoff or a copy of the Canadian belt knife. It reminded me of the Canadian belt knife, and I wanted to see it and also get your input on it. I'm going to open this up with the White Mountain Knives exclusive version of the Kaiser Cormorant. This is one of a few exclusives that White Mountain Knives has done of the Cormorant. This one is in CPM 3V blade steel, which is good stuff. Yeah, that's what this is, Petrified Fish. I recognize their logo even through the bubble wrap. It's got a lot of tape on it. It'd be hard to, maybe I should cut this rather than try and pull it apart. Yeah. Knives, they're useful. All right. Ah, okay, Petrified Fish. The packaging is different than the last time I purchased a Petrified Fish knife. This is cut out in there. That's pretty neat. And then there's some kind of embossing on here too. This is their logo. Okay, it's in a what is that? A hexagon, but it's got P period E period, or sorry, P period F period for Petrified Fish. I've seen people online saying, "What is that logo supposed to be?" It's just the letters PF. And this model is called the Zonda, and it's in Sandvik steel, so it's Swedish steel, 14C28N, and the knife is made in China. By the way, the shipping on this was pretty quick. It didn't ship directly from China. It shipped from somewhere in Chicago, but I was impressed by how quickly it showed up. All right, so now we have a different Petrified Fish. I don't know if we call that a logo. I guess I haven't seen it on their products elsewhere, but certainly consistent with the name of the company. Looks like we have to cut these little stickers. I'm doing this looking through the camera, so it's a little uncoordinated. All right, we got a cloth in here and a sticker. Cool. Neat looking cloth. All right, and then the knife itself. And also, some extra hardware. We get some extra screws. So that's nice. And oh yeah, an extra clip. Because if you want to, so it's set up for right side carry, but if you wanted to carry this on the left side, you couldn't just move this clip over because of the way that this handle curves. So you would need to install a left side carry clip, and they have provided that. So that's good. What do you think? I mean, it's not the same, but it's got, you know, it's got a drop point that kind of comes back here, and then there's some jimping right there. You know, there's a swedge on the Grohmann one. There's a sort of a, I don't know, decorative swedge. I guess we can call that a swedge, but it's an interesting milled pattern in the spine of the blade there on this one. But it's got a lot of belly, a little more belly. You know, it's more kind of in the Nessmuck territory than the original Canadian belt knife. This is olive wood. This knife, the Zonda, it's offered in a few different material options, as are many Petrified Fish knives. I think there was a G10 or a micarta, something like that, and then a wood option. Olive wood is fairly stable as far as woods go, which is why you see some manufacturers that are willing to use it even in outdoorsy kind of knives. You know, natural materials are more subject to warping and shrinking and cracking and stuff than synthetic materials in general. But olive wood is a good choice. So, and it's, you know, the edges are kind of chamfered a little bit. Is it sharp? Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. 14C28N. Looks like T8 hardware, and then maybe T6 for the pocket clip. Barrel spacers. Liner lock. And it flips open just fine. What do you think? Am I imagining things, or is that inspired by that Canadian belt knife? I mean, it's not identical, right? It's doing some things differently, but I think that's kind of the vibe. I think that's where it's coming from. Now, this company, let's talk about Petrified Fish for a minute. It's a Chinese company. I went on their website and looked around to see if they had any like company history or any kind of a background, and I didn't find anything. You know, I mean, they had their products and contact information, and that was really about it. They had nice photos of the different models of knives that they have. They had a section of discontinued knives, but I didn't see anything that was like, this company was founded in such and such a year with this, you know, kind of purpose or this mission in mind. Maybe that exists somewhere and I'm just not good at navigating their site and finding it, but you know, I became aware of them a few years ago, and I was intrigued because their prices were pretty modest, and some of their stuff seemed to be attractive, seemed to have, you know, seemed to look good, and the materials listed for what you were getting seemed pretty good. And the first Petrified Fish knife that I bought was this model right here, which is called the Scholar. And this thing, again, an olive wood handle, contoured, right? milled titanium pocket clip, crowned titanium backspacer. I think the hardware is titanium. The blade is, it has a crown spine, which, you know, is something that you see on high-end knives, you know, like Italian knife makers like to do that a lot. Sometimes you'll see that on American and even Chinese knives, but usually at a much higher price point than what we're talking about here. This is a front flipper. They hollow grind. Blade steel on this is 154 cm, which, you know, it's not a super steel, but it's a good steel. 154 cm is a respectable steel. And the action on this is good. And the lockup is good. And the price was insane. You can get one of these just like this one right now for a little under $68. And they make a few different versions of this knife. There's one with G10 handle scales. There's one with ironwood handle scales now. Originally it was just the olive and the G10, and they all had the satin finish blade. There are now some additional options. You can get a stonewash blade, and you can get ironwood, I think, is the other wood option. And it's a pretty good sized blade too. It's over 3.5 inches. It's like 3 3/4, including the ricasso back here, which is a pretty effective finger choil. The jimping is not all that grippy, but, and you know, the liner here is titanium, and there's no, I don't think there's a steel lock insert, which is the only real criticism I would have of this knife. That means that the titanium liner is eventually going to start wearing a groove into the steel of the blade tang, and you might have some issues with lock stick and stuff like that. Or you know, this lockup might not be as secure, but hell, for $67, you know, use it till it wears out, and then get another one. Yeah, look at that hollow grind. Centering is dead on. Contoured handle scales again, right? So I really like this. I decided to check out another Petrified Fish. Their most popular model is called the Beluga, and it's a big fat thing, which makes sense for something called the Beluga, because Beluga is a type of whale. It says contoured handle scales, G10, just steel hardware, G10 backspacer, steel liner, full steel liners. They're milled out a little bit to reduce weight. And normally the Beluga is I think that the standard version is a drop point, but this one is the Tonto, and it has a kind of a goofy looking Tonto profile. And it's got a rhinoceros as the icon there. I guess that, you know, maybe whoever designed this, that's their maker's mark or their logo or something. I'm sorry, I probably should have looked up to find out more about the Beluga before filming this video, but mostly I wanted to talk about the Scholar. But this is the other Petrified Fish knife that I bought. It's not really my thing. I'm not sure what possessed me to buy this, because this is not a style of knife that really appeals to me very much at the moment, but that's just aesthetic, right? I mean, I think in terms of the construction and everything, it's fine. It's a decent liner lock, decent front flipper, lockup's good. Contouring is a nice touch, right? A lot of knives in this price range don't have contouring. This is well under $100. I don't remember what I paid for this, but not a lot. And it's got a fuller flat grind, compound flat grind, high flat grind. There's the lockup, centering, pocket clip, deep carry, right? This is K110 steel, which is D2, but it is specifically Bowler's D2. So that's interesting. There's less expensive D2 stock out there that you could buy, but they bought specifically the K110, which is from Austria. And then, of course, D2 is only semi-stainless, so the fact that they've coated the blade here is appropriate. This knife, this new one, is also pretty comfortable except for that pocket clip. The bill on that pokes up a little more than I would like. And you know, you can kind of find a place to put your fingers where it lands between them with that pointy part. But if I was going to be using this knife a lot, I would investigate the possibility of a different clip, or maybe even just taking the clip off. It's got a lanyard hole, and of course, you know, this one doesn't have a clip. Right? It doesn't seem to me to be quite as impressive as the Scholar. It was not as expensive as the Scholar, though, either. I'm sorry, I don't remember what I paid for this, but I will put it on the screen here. And I did get it on sale, and that sale has ended. So I'll put what the actual street price is right now for one of these things. It's a brand new knife, launched in July of 2025. Yeah, the Scholar is still my favorite of the few Petrified Fish knives that I have experienced. I continue to be impressed with what you get for your money from this brand. You know, look at that. They even put an insert on this side so that when, you know, so that you can have the flush mounted pocket clip on either side and not have a gap here on whichever side you're not using, you know. It's a nice touch. I hope that was interesting and worthwhile for you. I'm Pocket Knife Collector. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I hope you do. I'll keep showing you knives. Thanks a lot. Zoom in a little bit. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.